we can say.
Thank you for confirming. Hello, all. Thank you for joining the session on strengthening your cloud security posture with Microsoft Defender for Cloud. I'm Vasavi, and I have my friend Future. Both of us will be presenting today. Both of us are program managers from Defender for Cloud Customer Experience Engineering team. So today's agenda, we will talk about how Microsoft Defender for Cloud works as CNAPP, and we will cover about the cloud security posture management. Then we will dive deeper into Defender CSPM capabilities, and we will look into the Defender integration with the Defender EASM and Entra Permissions Management tool. And if time permits, we will also open up for questions. So today, enterprises have too many security tools to secure their cloud infrastructure and applications. Integrating a wide range of tools that span from development to production and making it more challenging for response teams to reduce threat response time. So the answer is an end-to-end solution that offers comprehensive cloud security from development to runtime, a cloud native application protection platform. A CNAPP tool, as defined by Gartner or any other standards, it is typically a combination of components like DevSecOps that unifies security management at the code level across multi-cloud and multi-pipeline environments. Also, it's a combination of cloud security posture management, cloud infrastructure entitlement management, and cloud workload protection platforms, and also includes network security. So let's walk through how Microsoft Defender for Cloud is an all-in-one solution that can help organizations embed security from code to cloud. So if you look at this slide, Defender for Cloud addresses all of these requirements. So Defender for Cloud addresses the need for shifting security to left through DevSecOps integration. In our new Defender for DevOps plan empowers security teams with the ability to protect applications and resources from code to cloud across multi-pipeline environments and multi-cloud environments. This includes GitHub and Azure DevOps multi-cloud pipelines. The findings from Defender for DevOps, such as infrastructure as code misconfigurations and any exposed secrets that can be correlated with the other contextual cloud security insights to prioritize remediation in code. Next is cloud infrastructure entitlement management, or as it is pronounced, KIM. Defender for Cloud is now integrated with our KIM tool, Microsoft Entra Permissions Management. So if you look at some of the studies from Microsoft, according to a 2021 State of Cloud Permissions and Risks report, more than 90% of the identities are using less than 5% of the permissions that they are granted. And more than 50% of the permissions are high risk and can cause catastrophic damage. The KIM tool provides visibility into all actions performed by all identities, enforces the principle of least privilege, and continuously monitors for permission risks across multiple clouds. Next comes the cloud security posture management. So one of Microsoft Defender for Cloud's main pillar for cloud security is our CSPM capability. Defender for Cloud continuously assesses your multi-cloud resources across Azure, AWS, and Google for any security issues and shows you current security posture as a security score. The higher the score, the lower the identified risk level. Then comes the cloud workload protection plans. So Defender for Cloud has a vast coverage for workload protection across compute, storage, databases, network layer, app services, and these workload protection plans provide real-time threat detection and response to modern threats across your cloud workloads. Coming to integration with data security, data-aware security posture capabilities embedded with the Defender CSPM plan. This automatically discovers databases containing any sensitive data and helps reduce risk of data breaches. Defender for Cloud is also integrated with Microsoft Defender External Attack Surface Management tool, which enables true identification of internet exposed resources, and it augments the signals from configuration and cloud APIs. Defender for Cloud overall gets centralized visibility and integrated insights across Azure Network Security, permissions management, and Microsoft Sentinel for security information and event management, and security orchestration, automation, and response capabilities. If you look at the various cloud security posture challenges an organization faces, like lack of visibility of their workload deployments in multiple clouds. They don't have the visibility of all these workloads in a single dashboard. Another challenge would be misconfigurations. Like misconfigurations are a common cause of security incidents in the cloud. Organizations must ensure that their cloud environments are configured correctly and that security policies are in place to prevent any misconfigurations. Also, another huge challenge is about achieving the compliance requirements. Organizations must ensure that they are compliant with all relevant regulatory requirements such as GDPR, HIPAA, PCI DSS, etc. So Defender for Cloud is one tool that can address all these challenges. Let us see how. So the cloud security posture management capabilities are offered as foundational CSPM, which is free of cost, and a paid plan called Defender CSPM. While asset inventory, secure score, uh, this is calculated for across Azure, AWS, and GCP. Then comes 450 plus built-in recommendations and data export, integrated quick remediation are all free features. The paid plan covers a lot of other features. Agentless scanning for machines, agentless container posture, integrated data insights from Defender for DevOps, Defender EASM, and the KIM tools. Contextual security capabilities like attack path analysis, cloud security explorer, data aware security posture, the regulatory compliance and governance capabilities. All these features are come under as part of Defender CSPM plan. So let us look at the free features in elaborate way. So secure score, as I said, is calculated based on a set of security best practices and industry standards, like industry standards such as CIS and NIST cybersecurity framework. So Defender for Cloud continually assesses your multi-cloud resources for any security issues, and it then aggregates all the findings into a single secure score. So secure score is displayed individually for your Azure subscriptions, for your AWS accounts, and as well your GCP projects. You can also get the resource inventory all in one place in the Defender dashboard. The next thing is about the data visualization that you can use using our integrated workbooks. So workbooks offers you a rich set of built-in workbooks and as well the community offered workbooks. So these workbooks are available under a workbook gallery, and these provide interactive visual reports about organization security posture. The next free feature I would say is a continuous export. So you can configure continuous export from Defender for Cloud to analyze the information in the recommendations and alerts. You can export them to Azure Log Analytics or Event Hubs or any other SIM or SOAR tool or to any ITSM solution. The last one is about workflow automation. So if you can create a workflow that can trigger the logic apps on whenever there is a security alert or a recommendation or there are changes to a regulatory compliance. So all these features are offered as free when you enable Defender for Cloud on your subscription. Now let us look at the paid plan, that is Defender CSPM plan, and its feature. So the first and foremost thing that you need to do to enable your paid plan, the Defender CSPM plan, is to enable it on your subscription. So here you can see the foundational CSPM plan, which is free of cost. It is enabled by default for all your subscriptions. To use the Defender CSPM features, you need to enable the Defender CSPM plan at the subscription level. Currently, Defender CSPM capabilities are available for Azure and AWS environments. So once you enable the plan, the next thing that you need to do is you need to go to settings and enable the required extensions. So here you can see all the capabilities associated with Defender CSPM plan. You need to enable agentless scanning capabilities. So one thing to note here is agentless scanning requires the subscription owner permissions to enable the capabilities of agentless scanning. Say if you are not a subscription owner and you have enabled Defender CSPM plan, say with contributor permissions, in such a case, agentless scanner won't be enabled by default due to lack of permissions. So attack path analysis and security explorer won't be populated with vulnerabilities information because the agentless scanner is disabled. So make sure that you have enabled these agentless scanning capabilities. Now let us look at what is agentless scanning. With agentless scanning for machines, you will get wide visibility on vulnerabilities and the installed software on the VMs. Defender for Cloud takes snapshot of your VM disk and copies it into an isolated scanning environment. So this isolated scanning environment is in the same region where your virtual machine exists. A deep analysis is done on the disk snapshot and the results are sent to Defender for Cloud portal. The vulnerability assessment is powered by Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management. The metadata related to scanning results are sent to Defender for Cloud platform and the disk snapshot will be deleted within a few minutes. So how often these virtual machines are scanned? Usually we scan these virtual machines, every VM is scanned once in 24 hours. And if you look at the support for agentless scanning for machines, it supports Azure virtual machines and Azure virtual machine scale sets in flex mode. And in AWS, it supports EC2 and autoscale instances. So some customers might have all their disks encrypted. So we have support for the encrypted disks as well. So in Azure, we support the encrypted disks with platform managed keys. And in AWS, disks encrypted with platform managed keys and customer managed keys are supported. Defender for Cloud combines the breadth and depth of agentless and agent-based approaches. Often customers ask us, is agentless scanning a replacement for agent-based scanning? Not really. As agentless scanning is performed once in 24 hours, It doesn't provide the real-time threat detection, while agent-based scanning provides real-time threat detection. Agentless scanning allows security teams to get visibility at scale without depending on the workload owners. And advantage with agentless scanning is you don't need to open any ports for your agent communication, or you don't need to whitelist any URLs for your VMs. One more advantage is as agentless scanning works by analyzing disk snapshots without interfering with the running VMs, there is no performance impact on your machine. So, which approach you need to adopt in your environment? I would say both, because each of it has its own use case and each of it has its own advantage. Both are now seamlessly integrated and are combined under the same platform, that is Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management, and provide advanced detection, investigation, and response capabilities. Now, the cloud security graph is the platform behind contextual security. Cloud Security Graph is a graph-based context engine that exists within Defender for Cloud. Cloud Security Graph collects data from various data sources like DevOps systems, EASM tools. It collects data about your cloud resources, not only in Azure, but also about multi-cloud resources and how these resources are connected to each other. And if the resources are exposed to the internet, how what identities and permissions are associated with these resources, and also the vulnerabilities on these resources. All this data is collected and is then used to build a graph of interconnected cloud assets. Defender for Cloud scans the graph and detects exploitable paths attackers can use in order to breach your environment. Defender CSPM capabilities like attack path analysis and Cloud Security Explorer, which we will be talking going further, are built based on the Cloud Security Graph. So let us look at the attack path analysis feature in Defender CSPM. So attack path analysis helps you address the security issues that pose immediate threats with higher potential of being exploited in your environment. Defender for Cloud analyzes which security issues are part of potential attack paths that attackers could use to breach your environment. It also highlights the security recommendations that need to be resolved in order to mitigate it. By analyzing the attack path, security analysts can gain better understanding of the attacker's techniques, motivations, and the potential impact, which can be used to strengthen your security defenses and prevent any future attacks. Let us go to an attack path. Here you can see the attack path analysis tab, and you can observe that there are around 273 total attack paths within my environment. Let us now dig deeper into any one attack path. Say, let us pick the attack path here, that is Internet Exposed VM, has high severity vulnerabilities and need permission to a data store with sensitive data. Once you click on this, you can see we can understand the risk involved here is compute abuse and sensitive data exposure. And we can also see what can be the potential impact. So it can be like the attacker with network access to the machine can exploit the vulnerabilities. They can gain remote code execution and use the permission of the identity to steal the sensitive data from the storage account. Here you can click on any of these entities and you can get further more information about the entity. Also, you can see the remediation steps and the additional security best practices to reduce the risk are also specified here. Using attack path analysis, security admins can proactively prioritize risk remediation efforts even before an attack happens. Let us now look at the next cool feature offered by Defender CSPM, that is Cloud Security Explorer. So Cloud Security Explorer helps you to proactively hunt for security risks within your environment. Security Explorer allows you to customize Defender for Cloud findings and run custom queries on top of Cloud Security Graph. So security teams can take a proactive approach and evaluate their environment for any potential security risks. And this proactive approach helps the security teams to remediate any risks before even they are exploited, and they can prevent data breaches and unauthorized access. Let us go ahead and try to build a query. So before you build a query, make sure to select the scope of the query to be run. So here you can select the scope wait, on which subscriptions and AWS connectors that you want to run this query, or even if it can be a GitHub connector. So you can run the query on the selected Azure subscriptions within your tenant, or on an AWS connector that is onboarded, or a GitHub connector that is onboarded to Defender for Cloud. To run a query on your Azure subscription, you require at least a security reader or a security admin permission on your subscription. So here you can see the query templates. These are built-in templates. You can start using one of the predefined templates, or you can build a query from the scratch using the query builder option. Once you build a query, you can share the link of your query with other people within your team. Let us go and run the query template VMs with a log4shell vulnerability, and that has permissions to a storage account. I'm clicking here, and we will get this predefined template, and we can run and we can search for any probable records within our environment here. So here you can see the search resulted shows the VMs has permissions to 2 storage accounts. And if you drill down further by clicking on the first record, you can see more insights about the connection and the vulnerabilities of the VM. So here you can see the VM can authenticate as to a storage account, and it has insights, or the VM has mm, mm, vulnerabilities. So you can also see more insights about the connection vulnerabilities, and you can also see the managed identity here that is associated with the VM, and it has the reader permission on the storage account. And when you click on the second record, we can also see what permissions it has, or the managed identity has on the second storage account as well. So you can see that it has storage blob data reader permissions. So this way, the Cloud Security Explorer can help you security teams to proactively hunt for any probable attack paths within your environment, and you can go ahead and proactively remediate them. So I just wanted to highlight about the latest integration of Defender for API integration with Defender CSPM. So most of you must have heard about that. We recently announced the public preview of Defender for APIs plan. This is a new Defender plan offering as part of the Microsoft Defender for Cloud. And Defender for APIs provide visibility into business critical Azure APIs, understand their security posture, prioritize vulnerabilities, fixes, and detect and respond to active runtime threats within minutes. Defender API provides insights such as broken or missing authentication, externally exposed APIs, or unused API endpoints. Defender for API also identifies which APIs are exposing sensitive or PII data in an API request or a response. So Defender for CSPM capabilities provide contextual API security findings and guide prioritized remediation. Let us go ahead and build a query to identify unauthenticated API endpoints that are exposed to the internet containing sensitive data in their response, and we can prioritize remediation. So for that, from the entity section, we can filter the API collections and select it if the metadata as contains. Select the API endpoints. Select the condition as exposed to the internet and another condition as contains sensitive data. And we can also see that we can also filter with some recommendations, like recommendations as API endpoint should be authenticated. So we can also go ahead and select a recommendation. So when you click on search, the query returns 3 unauthenticated API endpoints exposed to the internet, and these API endpoints are containing sensitive data in their request or response. We need to prioritize remediation for these API endpoints, and this can be remediated proactively. So with this, I will hand over to my friend Future to walk us through the agentless container posture capabilities. Over to you, Future.
All right, thank you so much, Vasavi, for that introduction, and thank you for sharing this first half of the presentation. So as Vasavi mentioned, I will be covering agentless container posture and how that's working in the Defender CSPM plan. So in order to talk about agentless container posture today, I'll be going over the 2 extensions that you need to turn on. The first one being agentless discovery of Kubernetes, and then the second one being the container vulnerability assessment scanning. And then I will go into detail about how we incorporate the information leveraged from those 2 extensions into the attack path analysis and the the Cloud Security Explorer. So first off, I want to talk about the prerequisites. With agentless container posture, these capabilities are currently only available for your Azure resources. So that includes the Azure Container Registries and Azure Kubernetes services. And then the second thing here is the permissions. In order to enable the agentless discovery of Kubernetes, you would need either owner permissions on the subscription, or you would need a combination of user access admin and security admin on your Azure subscription. For the container vulnerability assessment scanning, you need either security admin or owner permissions. And again, these capabilities are available for Defender CSPM, and there's no dependency on having Defender for Containers turned on, meaning that you do not need to turn on Defender for Containers to use these agentless container posture capabilities. All right, so let's take a look at the architecture for the agentless discovery of Kubernetes. So when you switch on this, when you switch the toggle to on for this extension, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a managed identity in your environment, and it's going by this name here that you see on the screen for create. And then we take that managed identity and we assign it a built-in role called Kubernetes Agentless Operator. And then using the managed identity with this built-in rule, we're able to discover your AKS clusters using API calls to the API server of the AKS cluster. And then from there, after discovering your AKS clusters, we're performing a bind operation between the managed identity and this Kubernetes role that you'll see here. And this role would be visible via the API and ultimately give us read permissions into the data plane of the cluster. And this is essentially how we're getting that nitty-gritty information, such as the namespace, the services or jobs that are on the cluster. Now, when we look at the container vulnerability assessment scanning, so essentially when you turn on the toggle for the vulnerability assessment scanning, you're authorizing Defender CSPM to scan all the images in your ACR. So what we do from there is we'll discover all your ACRs and the repositories and images that are in them that were created before or after enabling the plan. And once a day, we'll detect any new images in your ACR and also take an inventory. And we use that inventory to generate any new reports for images that were discovered, as well as doing a daily scan of images that were either pushed during the last 90 days to the registry or for images that are currently running on your AKS cluster. And some of the benefits to this vulnerability assessment scanning, the first one that I want to highlight is that it's agentless. So there's no agent required here to configure the scanning. And there's also zero fit configuration, meaning that all you have to do is, turn on Defender CSPM and make sure that the toggle for container vulnerability assessment scanning is turned on. The second thing here is the daily scans and rescans that I mentioned before. So we're scanning your images in ACR every 24 hours, as well as the images that are currently running on the cluster. And then the fourth thing here is ship and runtime. So this is essentially referring to how we're scanning images in ACR and images on the cluster that are running. With the container vulnerability assessment powered by MDVM, we also have support for both OS and language packages, as well as exploitability information, which I'll show you through a demo. And in addition to that, we do support ACR private links with the scanning. So now if you'll join me in the Azure portal here, I'll show you firsthand how these capabilities are working. All right. So earlier, Vasavi showed us how to turn on Defender CSPM, and we saw that. So here I just want to highlight the two extensions that you'll be needing for agentless container posture. The first one being the agentless discovery for Kubernetes, and then the second one being the container registry vulnerability assessment. So once you turn these two extensions on for the agentless discovery for Kubernetes, it takes us around 24 hours to detect everything on your cluster. And from there, you would be able to use the Cloud Security Explorer to perform any advanced hunting with either the out-of-the-box templates that we have or build one of your own. And I'll show you an example of how you can do this through one of the out-of-the-box templates. So we'll look at the one called Kubernetes namespace contain vulnerable pods and open the query here. And you'll see one of the benefits of this agentless discovery of Kubernetes is that we're really able to look at the data plane and allow you to view this information that we're detecting. So for example, some organizations are really focused on the namespace. So maybe they divvy up different workloads in terms of who owns the namespaces here. So as you can see, when we scroll down into what's available for you to query, the namespace is one of those things. When we look at the Kubernetes workloads, we can also see different entities like the daemon sets, jobs, pods, etc. But then from there, we're able to look at this namespace, see that the different services that are on this namespace, and then even from there, see the pods and containers that are running as well. So we'll see with the services, if they're routing traffic to a pod that's running on a container that also has a container image, which has high severity vulnerabilities. And when we click search, it would show us the results here. But this is an example of one of the queries that you can use out of the box. And of course, you can leverage this to create your own query as well. The next thing I would like to show you all is the recommendations for the container vulnerability assessment scanning. So there are two recommendations that come with this feature. The first one being the container registry images should have vulnerability findings resolved. And you'll notice here it's powered by Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management. And then the second one that we have is for running container images. So running container images should have vulnerability findings resolved, also powered by Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management. And when we click on this first one here, you'll see that first, it starts out by giving us an overview of the vulnerabilities that were detected. So you'll see that we scanned 6 images here, and of those 6 images, we did get a lot of vulnerabilities, and we see the number of unique CVEs. And you'll notice, as I mentioned before, the freshness interval here is 24 hours. So when we display the vulnerabilities, you'll actually see them listed here and sorted by CVE. And you'll notice that we actually include critical severity vulnerabilities as well. And if we take a look at one of these CVEs, you'll see that we show you a description of the vulnerability, some general information, which includes the data was published, as well as if there's a fix available for the vulnerability. And then one of the things that I mentioned before is that we also show you the exploitability information. So here we show you if there were any exploit steps published, any exploit steps that had been verified, or any exploit kits that exist for this vulnerability. In this case, the answer is no for all of these. In the event that any of these do indicate that the vulnerability is exploitable, you will see here that we do, when it says yes, we do list out the exploit URIs. So in this case, we are showing you a link to exploit DB to read more information about this. So this is a look at the recommendation for container registry images should have vulnerability resolved. So this is looking at the images that are stored in ACR. When we think about images that are running on the cluster, this is where the recommendation for running container images should have vulnerability findings resolved comes in. And the experience is very similar, the difference being that we start by showing you the cluster level here because we're looking at running container images. But you'll notice that when you actually do click on the vulnerability, you get a lot of the same. You get the same information in terms of the description, the general information surrounding the CVE, as well as the exploitability section. So earlier, when we looked at this recommendation, for example, we saw here that we have over 3,000 vulnerabilities. That's a lot, and you might be thinking, how do I get started with that? And this is where the attack path analysis comes in. So we do have different attack path analysis or attack paths for containers in Kubernetes. And the one I'm showing you here today is for Kubernetes pods that are internet exposed and running a container with a high severity vulnerability. So here you can see that we're incorporating insights from the container vulnerability scanning to show you this attack path. And as Vasavi mentioned before, we show you the description, the resources that were involved in this attack path, as well as recommendations that you should remediate. And one of the things that I want to highlight, so earlier before we talked about the agentless discovery of Kubernetes and being able to detect different parts of the data plane. And you'll notice that we incorporate that here when we show you the namespace that was involved in the attack path. And with all attack paths, these are very interesting because one, we start out by showing you the entry point, which is the cluster, and then the target. And you can actually reproduce this exact attack path using our Agentless containers lab that we house in the Defender for Cloud GitHub repository. But it shows you the specific cluster that's involved in the attack path, and then it breaks it all the way down from the namespace, the virtual machine, the pods that are running the container, and then the specific image that's within that container. So this is a look at the agentless container posture management for Defender CSPM. And again, to take benefit of these capabilities, you have to make sure that you've turned on these 2 extensions for Defender CSPM. And with that being said, I'll hand the mic back over to Vasavi to share more about the Defender CSPM plan.
Thank you, Future, for an excellent demo. Let me share my screen again. Yeah, let us now cover about the more capabilities offered by Defender CSPM. So securing the cloud data estate is very challenging. A strong data security posture is essential for organizations to protect their sensitive data from threats and maintain a customer's trust and comply with regulations. And also they need to avoid any costly data breaches. So the dynamic and complex nature of cloud deployments have multiplied the data security blind spots for security teams. Security teams often lack comprehensive visibility into their cloud data estate, and any misconfigured object stores and the database instances are becoming targets for the attackers. So Defender CSPM includes the data-aware security posture management. With this, security teams can get ahead of their data risks and prioritize security issues that could result in a data breach. Data security posture automatically discovers data stores containing any sensitive data and helps reduce risk of data breaches. Say your storage account contains sensitive data and is exposed to the internet, or a storage container is publicly accessible. These kind of misconfigurations can be detected by Defender for Cloud Data Security Posture Management feature. Behind the scenes, it can use M365 auto labeling rules to turn classifications into sensitivity labels. These labels are evaluated per file. These are stored as a metadata within Defender for Cloud. Please note that the file itself is not stored in the cloud. It is not modified. It is not at all modified in any way. So data security posture automatically discovers sensitive data stored across your data resources that contain sensitive data such as personally identifiable information or financial data or any credentials. After discovering resources with sensitive data, you can explore the risk to sensitive data through attack path analysis or through Cloud Security Explorer. So currently, Azure storage accounts and AWS S3 buckets are supported for this feature. So again, to enable this feature, you need to enable Defender CSPM plan, and you also need to turn the sensitive data discovery extension on your subscription. So sensitive data discovery is available in Defender CSPM and Defender for Storage plans. When you enable Defender CSPM plan, the sensitive data discovery extension is turned on as part of the plan. But for customers who have enabled Defender CSPM before data aware security feature was available, the sensitive data discovery extension might be turned off by default. So in such a case, you need to explicitly go ahead, go to settings and turn this feature to on. Once you turn this on and click continue and save the settings. After turning on the feature, it takes up to 24 hours for first time discovery. If you create a new storage account after the initial discovery, it is discovered within 24 hours or less. And from there on, if you update any files in the discovered storage accounts, data will be refreshed within 8 days or so. So you can also configure the data sensitivity settings by going to environment settings and click on data sensitivity. Microsoft Purview customers can leverage existing custom data classifiers using Purview information types and labels. By default, Defender for Cloud uses the built-in sensitive information types provided by Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal. So you can see the finance, PII, and credential categories are the default info types this data is typically sought out by attackers. So if the pre-configured sensitive information types don't meet your requirements, then you can create your own custom sensitive information types. So credential scan is in data aware security posture is in public preview now. Credential scan effectively identifies and addresses potential risks associated with resources that hold any credentials. Currently, again, the support is limited to credentials stored in Azure storage accounts and AWS S3 buckets. So you can see there is a robust scanning capabilities encompasses 38 different credential types here. So here you can see the credential scan leads to identification of sensitive resources containing actual secrets with potential impact. So the credentials can be anything like Azure AD client secret, Azure AD user credentials, or Azure service bus, shared access signatures, or in case of AWS, it can be S3 client secret access keys. So a lot of such credentials can be scanned if they are stored on your AWS S3 buckets or Azure storage accounts. To enable the sensitive data discovery on AWS, it is the same process again. So the similar steps need to be followed for an AWS connector as well. So you need to enable Defender CSPM plan and enable the sensitive data discovery extension. So you need to enable the sensitive data discovery extension and click on save. So there is a little change here. If you to enable data aware security posture for your AWS onboarded AWS connector, you need to update the cloud formation template and redeploy to your AWS environment. The updated cloud formation template creates a new role in AWS IAM, and it creates allow permissions for Defender for Cloud Scanner to access the data in the S3 buckets. So redeploy the updated cloud formation template is required step for AWS connector. Once you configure these settings, it takes up to 24 hours to see the results for sensitive data discovery on your S3 buckets. And if you create a new S3 bucket, it will be discovered within 48 hours or less than that. Let us see the results of sensitive data discovery. So let us look at the attack path analysis with sensitive data exposure risk. The attack path shows the entry point is the S3 bucket with public access and the target files with sensitive data stored on it. You can click on the insights, and the attack path insights include information about S3 bucket exposed to the internet, and it allows public access. And not only that, it also highlights the sensitive info types and the file names, including the path here. Next, we will look at the integration of Defender for Cloud with uh, external attack surface management tool. Most companies invest in solutions inside their firewall, but how about the vulnerabilities and risks associated with an organization's external facing digital assets is a question, right? So Microsoft Defender EASM allows you to understand your attack surface from the outside in perspective. You get a complete visibility into internet exposed assets, and it helps cloud security teams to see unknown and unmanaged resources outside the firewall. You can use Defender for Cloud new integration with EASM tool to improve your organization's security posture and reduce any potential risk of being attacked. So EASM collects data for publicly exposed assets outside in, and these insights are fed into Cloud Security Graph. And that data can be used by Defender for Cloud CSPM in the inside out approach to assist with internet exposure validation and discovery capabilities to provide better visibility. So here is something that I want to highlight. Defender EASM is natively integrated into Defender for Cloud. So just to get the insights about internet exposed resources, you don't need EASM license. Only if you want to drill down and understand more about the internet exposed resources, you want to use a EASM platform in that case, only then you will need EASM license. The next integration we will look at is Microsoft Entra Permissions Management. Microsoft Entra Permissions Management helps you improve your security posture by ensuring the principle of least privilege across identities and resources in your infrastructure as service. Entra Permissions Management currently supports three major public clouds: AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. To use Entra Permissions Management, you need to have a 45-day trial period, or you can have a paid license. You can enroll in a 45-day free trial and run a risk assessment across your multi-cloud environment. To check the integration with Entra Permission Management tool, you can go to Security Posture and click on the bubble here. You can see Entra Permissions Management status here. If you have enabled Entra Permissions Management in your subscription or tenant, the findings will be fed into Defender for Cloud recommendations. So Entra Permissions Management tool collects the data about the identities and the permissions associated with the identities. From activity logs, like Azure activity logs, it also collects the information about what permissions are used by these identities to do their job. Based on this information, it generates permission creep index. Permission creep index, just to give is a heat map, shows the incurred risk of users with access to high risk permissions. Permission creep index is generated for Azure subscriptions, AWS accounts, and GCP projects and will be presented within MDC. PCI reflects the security risk due to vast unused or used permission gap. The higher the PCI, the higher the risk. So the customers always aim to lower the PCI to reduce the risk exposure, right? So you can reduce the PCI by removing the unused high-risk permission assignments. So here you can see three recommendations that are added, one per cloud environment. Please be noted, these recommendations are currently won't be scored for secure score. So here you can see over-provision identities in subscriptions should be investigated to reduce permission creep index, similarly for AWS account and GCP project. Each recommendation assessment presents the PCI score for Azure subscription, AWS account, and GCP project. High, medium PCIs will be make the resource considered as unhealthy, and a low PCI score will be considered as healthy permissions. So permission management health, the ranges how this is calculated as 0 to 33 is considered as low, 34 to 66 is considered as medium, and 67 to 100 will be considered as high. Here you can see the recommendations related to over-provision identities in Azure subscriptions. You can remediate the recommendation by right-sizing the over-provision permissions and automate least privilege policy enforcement. Now, let us look at the governance capabilities, which is part of Defender CSPM. Security teams are responsible for improving the security posture of their organizations, but they may not have the authority to actually implement security recommendations. You can define rules that assign an owner who is responsible to remediate these recommendations and set the due date. This creates accountability and transparency to the workload owners. A weekly email notification can be sent to these owners and their managers as well to make sure that they take timely action on the recommendations that can improve the security posture and recommendations. The next feature, which is part of Defender CSPM, is regulatory compliance. The regulatory compliance dashboard provides insights into your compliance posture based on how you are meeting specific compliance requirements. By default, every Azure subscription has the Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark assigned. You can add a compliance standard to your management group or subscription based on your organization requirements. You can see the available regulatory standards include PCI DSM, NIST, SOC, ISO, HIPAA, FedRAMP, etc. Security teams can use the readily available regulatory standards and also can create their own custom standards and recommendations to meet specific internal requirements. Defender for Cloud provides the option of creating custom recommendations and standards for AWS and GCP using KQL queries. This is in public preview as of now. In summary, these are the complete list of capabilities that are offered under free CSPM and paid Defender CSPM plan. You can go through each of these features and understand which feature comes under foundational or free CSPM feature and which is a Defender CSPM feature and enable them accordingly. And just to give a updated Defender CSPM plan pricing, the new price is $5 per billable resource per month. The billing starts from 1st August, and for those who already enabled Defender CSPM, the plan will remain free until end of July. Billable workloads are virtual machines, storage accounts, open source databases, and SQL Pass and SQL servers on the machines. In case of AKS workloads, the underlying compute nodes for AKS clusters are regarded as servers for billing purposes. So the billing structure is also simplified now. There will no longer be any automatic discounts applied for customers with any cloud workload plans. Customers will simply be charged $5 per billable resource per month. So I hope this clarifies about the pricing. I have some resources to help you dive deeper into Defender CSPM capabilities. And with this, we can open up for questions.
Great. The team has been great with answering questions. All of them seem to be answered in the chat. If we have time for a couple, we do have a few worth reiterating. The first is, can we use agentless scanning for AWS VMs?
Yes. Currently, we support AWS EC2 instances and scale sets as well.
Great, thank you. Next question is, how is agentless scanning in MDC different from NDE software inventories and TVM, as that shows information about servers?
So they're both using the same scanner, which is Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management. And when you go into the portal to turn on the agentless scanning of machines, you'll actually see in the description that it shows you that it does scan your machines for installed software and vulnerabilities.
Great, thank you. And then the last question we have is, where do the compliance insights come from?
So compliance is part of our regulatory compliance embedded into Defender for Cloud. So we have Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark assigned to each and every subscription by default. So all the assessments will be done across this Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark, and these findings can be fed into Cloud Security Graph.
Great. Well, that seems to be all the questions we've got. So I'd like to thank you, Vasavi and Future, for being our guests and for sharing the great information with our community. Also, thank you to the Q&A team who helped us with answering the questions and providing the resourceful information. To all the listeners still on the line, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desire to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become part of our security community. Together, we can make a global impact. So join us at aka.ms/security-community. This is also where you'll be notified about the upcoming webinars, events, and other announcements. Also, please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. For those of you who may have additional questions on the topic we just covered or other product-related questions, please feel free to raise them on our Microsoft Tech Community discussion space at aka.ms/mdc-community. Thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.